yeah, it is a biological process in which organisms give rise to an offsprings, okay, which ensures its continuity, species continuity. And there are some functions of reproduction. Let us see what is that. It maintains the life on earth, and then it also continues the generation to generation, and then creates genetic variation among the population. And next, and it maintains the population of the young and adult and the aged persons. And there are two types of reproduction. One is asexual, another is sexual. Asexual, only one parent, and whereas this, yes. Okay. Now let us see about asexual reproduction. What is asexual reproduction?
Involvement of one parent to give rise to their offspring
without any gametic fusion. Okay, and there are different types of methods of asexual reproduction. The first is binary fission, multiple, and then budding, fragmentation, sporulation, and then vegetative propagation, which is divided into two, that is natural and artificial. Natural, it is based on root, stem and leaf, whereas artificial, there is cutting, grafting, layering and tissue culture. Okay. This is binary fission. What happens in binary fission means it is the cell division where the parent cell divides into two smaller identical daughters, but whereas in multiple it is twice the binary fission, that is here it is two daughter cells, here it is 4 or more than 4 or 2, that is multiple fission. Okay. And the next one is budding. There are two types of budding. One is external budding and internal budding. In external, what happens?
The bud will form
Outside the body. Yeah, example hydra or yeast. And whereas in internal, it is also called as gemule formation. What happens in internal budding then?
the buds will form inside the body.
Yes, inside it's called as internal body, with the presence of micropyle and which contains a inner membrane and an arcades and surrounded by spicules. This is internal budding. An example for internal budding is spongilla. Okay. And the next one, sporulation. What happens in sporulation is multiple fission happens, but that is the individual is surrounded by a resistant coat. Each individual is surrounded by a resistant coat. That is cyst walls before they release from the parent is known as sporulation. And the encysted products are called as spores. And it is not only the fastest method of reproduction, but is also a very cheap method, and sporulation is generally found in Monera, Protista and amoeba. And the next one is fragmentation. It is also another kind of asexual method. What happens here is the body breaks into distinctive pieces, and that which each generates into an offspring. And this is found in sponges, sea anemones and echinoderms. It is also found in algae and fungi. Now let us see the plant asexual reproduction. Okay, it is a process of forming a new plant from a detached vegetative part to form a new offspring or new plant. That is called as plant asexual reproduction. Okay. Now let us see about natural vegetative propagation. Under favorable condition, what happens? These are the new plant arises from root, underground stems in various parts of the plant. The first one is root. What happens here? The bud presents on the root grows into a leafy shoot called slips, and each slips give rise to a new plant. Like example in sweet potato, guava, yam, Tinorospora, etc. And the next one is underground stems. There are various underground stems. The first one is suckers. What they do? They arise from the base of the erect shoot and grow horizontally in the soil and then come out of the new aerial shoot. That is example chrysanthemum, mint, etc. And the next is rhizomes. These are the modified stems with buds. Like example for rhizomes is, give some example. Not potato. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next one is bulbs. These are highly reduced underground stems with a number of buds. Example for bulbs.
Onion. Garlic.
Garlic, yeah, yeah. And next one is tubers. What happens is the stem branches have a several buds in tubers. That example, each eye of the potato is a bud, which grows into a new potato is also a bud, and which grows into a new potato plant. And the next is creeping stems. Creeping stems is nothing but they are the vegetative propagation by means of that, and they are divided into runners. These are modified stems with adventitious roots at nodes, and the node give rise to an aerial shoot, becomes a new plant, like example in grasses. Okay, and the next is aerial stem. Aerial stem of a cacti develop into a new plant when the stem segments fall on the ground. Okay, when the other plants fall on the ground, new plant rises, like example opentia. And the next is leaves. Even from leaves, new plant will generate, rise. Some plants develop adventitious buds on their leaf, which get detached and develop into a new plants, like example bryophyllum. This ability to fully exploited for commercial benefit by the farmers. They are useful in farming. And then bulbules, it is a fleshy buds produced in the axial of a foliage leaves in place of the axillary buds. They grow from a new plant when they shed or fall on the ground. Same like what? Same like leaves only. And like example agave, oxalis and allium, sativum or lily, etc. And the next method is natural vegetative propagation in unfavorable condition. Before it was favorable condition. There are two types of process. One is zoospores and other is conida. What happens in zoospores is they have a motile structure with two or more flagella. These are the flagellas. Okay. And the flagella help the zoospores to swim to the aquatic habitat where for proper dispersal, like example Chlamydomonas, albago or Ulthrax. And whereas conida, they are opposite of zoospores. They are non-motile, they cannot move, and they are exogenous spores which develop through constriction on the tips of the hyphae in the fungi. This is conida, see. Okay, like example Penicillium and Aspergillus. And the next method is artificial vegetative propagation method, and the first one is stem cutting. We all know we will be practicing this stem cutting in our house. Okay, like what we do, cutting the stem from a healthy disease free plant, and then what must do after cutting the stem? What we'll do? We plant it in the and remove any flowers and buds when preparing cutting. And this is a stem cutting, and layering is of two types. One is mound layering, another is air layering. What happens here? They bend the stem and they bury in the soil so that it can give rise to the another plant. That is mound. Whereas in air layering, what they do? They remove the bark tissue and then moist soil it over that, and then cover it with a polythene paper to retain moisture. This is air layering. Okay, these vegetative propagations are man-made, they are not natural. Okay. Okay, and the next is grafting. What they do, they select the plants and then cut the specific region whichever we want, and then attach it and wrap with a wax. So they can give a new desired plant. And the next one is micro propagation. It is done in, where it is done? It is done in laboratory. Like we should take the shoot apex and then shoot tip or meristem, put it into a culture tube, that is a test tube, and then make it grow like primary culture, and where the shoot development with axillary shoot proliferation, and then the rooting of the shoots, and again a rooted plant and a potted plant becomes. This is otherwise known as what?
Tissue culture.
Yes, tissue culture. Okay. Now, next we will see sexual reproduction in higher organisms. The mode of reproduction which involves the formation of male
And female gametes.
that leads to sexual reproduction, and these are exhibited only in multicellular organisms, all the flowering and most of the animals. The period during which the organisms grow to attain the sexual maturity is called as juvenile phase in animals, whereas in plants it is called vegetative phase, and this phase is followed by another phase when an organism start sexually. It is called as reproductive phase, and the end of the reproductive phase is another phase called as senescent phase, that is old age phase, which is the last phase of the life cycle, and after that the organism dies. Now let us see the sexual reproduction in plants. Some plants show unusual behavior like unusual behavior for flowering, like bamboo tree. It only what it does?
Only flower 50.
Yes, it only reproduce once in a lifetime, that is after 50 to 100 years. And some other flower also, give some example. Yes. Time, like when it will flower. Yeah, once in the 12 years it flowers. Okay. Now let us see the sexuality in plants. In some plants and fungi, what happens is male and the female reproductive organs are present in same plant. That plant are called as what?
Male and female gamete.
Same plant, present in the same plant. Such plants are called as what? Monoecious or another word is there. What is that? Homothallic, yeah. When, okay, and other than that, in some organisms or some plants, male is different and female is different, is called as dioecious or
Heterothallic.
yeah. Like example, give some example for dioecious plants.
Papaya.
Okay. Yeah, whereas in monoecious plants, example? Yeah. Okay, correct. Okay. Now let us see about sexual reproduction in animals. Usually in animals it is
Sexual reproduction.
yes.
Most of them.
Yes, and they are divided into two breeders. One is continuous breeders and another is seasonal breeders. What happens is some animals remain reproductively actively throughout their lifespan. Like example, humans, they are called as continuous breeders, but seasonal breeders, they only breed up to a certain age, certain seasons only. Like dogs, birds, these are called as seasonal breeders. Okay. In animals, morphological and physiological changes occur prior to and post reproductive phase. Okay, there will be always a change before and after reproduction. So during this phase, what happens? Activities of ovaries, accessory ducts and hormone exhibit cyclic changes, like what? In non-primate animals such as dogs, tigers, cows, etc. These changes are called as ostrich cycle, but whereas in monkeys, ape and humans, this is called as menstrual cycle. Now let us see the sexuality in the animals. Unisexual means what they have, say, a different male and female reproductive system in separate individuals, whereas in bisexual it is in same individual, and these produce male or female gamete but not both, but this produce male and female gametes together only. Okay, give some examples for bisexual organisms.
Earthworm, sponge, tapeworm.
Yes, and for unisexual? Human.
Cockroach.
Yes, I am asking about animals. Okay. Now let us see the events in the sexual reproduction. This pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization. Pre-fertilization, gametogenesis and gamete transfer occurs. But whereas in fertilization it is external and internal fertilization. Post-fertilization it is zygote formation and embryogenesis. Now let us see about gametogenesis now. Okay, what is gametogenesis? Yeah, that is called as gametogenesis. When two gametes are similar in appearance and not able to differentiate which is male and female, it is called as homogametes or isogametes. If we are able to distinguish which is female and which is male, it is called as heterogametes. Okay, among the heterogametes, the male reproductive unit is called as anthrazoid or sperm, and in the female it is called as egg or ovum. And then the cell division during gamete formation, organisms such as monerans, fungi, algae and bryophytes have haploid parental body, and then they produce gametes by mitotic division. And whereas organisms belong to pteridophytes, gymnosperms, most of the animals including humans have diploid parental body. There it is haploid, here it is diploid, and the gametes are thus formed by meiosis. Okay, now let us see about the gamete transfer. Okay, what do you know about gamete transfer?
The gamete transfer from male to female.
Yes, yeah, correct. After gamete formation, that is before a slide, what happens? This female and male comes to a physical association and fuse with each other. And in some plants like algae, bryophytes, water acts as a medium. Like how water acts as a medium here?
After the maturity of male gamete, the male gamete release
Okay.
and float on the water and reach the
Yes.
female.
That is called as
Gamete transfer.
okay. Because in some male gametes they are motile, yes, pollination, correct. And female gametes are stationary. In seeded plants, pollen grains carry male gametes that have to be transferred to the stigma to carry out the, in some seeded plant what carries what? Pollen grains carries the male gametes and thus leads the ovaries carries the eggs. When anther bursts, a large number of pollen grains are released and these pollen grains easily transferred in bisexual plants, but in cross pollinating plants an agent is required to transfer the pollen grain like water as mentioned before, and this transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma is called as pollination. Okay, and the next is fertilization. As we saw, there are two types of fertilization. One is internal and another is external. What happens in external fertilization?
The organism will produce externally.
Like how? Yes, correct. Huh?
Produce egg externally.
Okay. Yes, okay, we'll see. What happens is, like example in salmon fish, the female fish, what it does, it releases the ovum or outside, the egg outside, and the sperms also comes outside. So, they fuse externally outside. So, that is known as external fertilization. See, the female deposits the ovum on the river bed, in the river itself or in the sea, and the male then deposits his sperm in the water and they swim to fertilize the ovum. Okay, so that is external. Whereas internal, the fertilization between is an where it does internally, it's called as internal fertilization. But in majority of the aquatic organisms, the fertilization is external only. Yes. Okay. And there is also a another special scenario in honeybees. What they do is, the fertilized eggs give rise to the queens and the worker bees, and the unfertilized eggs give rise to the male. Okay? Fertilized egg gives rise to only queen and the worker, that is also a female. But whereas unfertilized egg give rise to only male bees. Okay. Now let us see about parthenocarpy. What is parthenocarpy?
Formation of fruit without act of fertilization.
Yes. Seedless. Yes, seed. And the condition which the fruit is developed without the formation of the seeds. And this is mainly due to the absence of fertilization. No fertilization will be occurring in this type of fruits. And pollination and embryo develop. In botany, parthenocarpy means virgin fruit. And let us see in parthenogenesis. What is parthenogenesis? Same, this is in plants, this is in animals, that's all. The parthenogenesis is a form of asexual reproduction where females can reproduce even without a male to mate with. Okay. Now it is after fertilization. What happens after fertilization? These are the events. There are two events. One is zygote formation and another is embryogenesis. Zygote formation means fertilization leads to what? Formation of zygote. Okay, this zygote undergoes a resting period before germination. And in organisms with haploidic life cycle, zygote divides by meiosis to form the haploid spores, which grows into an haploid individuals. But whereas in contrary, that is diploidic life cycles, zygote divides by mitosis. There it is meiosis, but in diploidic cycle it is mitosis and forms a diploid individual. In organisms with haplodiploidy means what they do, they divide mitotically to form a diploid saprophytes. And what is embryogenesis?
Development of embryo from the zygote.
Yes, that is called as embryogenesis. What happens? Embryo from zygote is called as embryogenesis. There are two types. One is cell division, other is cell differentiation. Cell division nothing but mitosis, which increases the number of cells, but differentiation is to form the different types of tissues and organs, is nothing but cell differentiation. Okay. Now let us see what is oviparous and viviparous. What is oviparous and viviparous animals?
Egg-laying animals oviparous.
Okay.
Giving
Yes, yes, okay. We'll see the difference between them. Okay, oviparous nothing but animals refers which produce eggs and hatch after maturation is called as oviparous. What is viviparous? They give birth to an young ones and lay either fertilized or unfertilized eggs, but here it is only to young ones. They may this may undergo both internal and external fertilization. Here it is only internal fertilization. The development of zygote occurs outside the, here is inside the female, and the embryo receives nutrient from the yolk, but here it is from the mother directly through what? Placenta. Okay, the chances of survival are less, but here it is more. Like